Hello, witches and wizards, and welcome one more time to Medicinaiceterum. Today, I wanted to talk about the title of this video, the problem of environmentalism. What has triggered this search for me and this subject is that ever since March, I've been journaling. Well, I've been journaling since the start of the year, but ever since March, when the seasons were supposed to shift, to change, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere in Northern Ireland, so in March, we should have our spring, right? The start of the spring. And ever since that month, I've been feeling so out of sync with this change of season, feeling so gloomy and so dark and so wintry. And I expressed this in my previous video. If you've seen it, you know that I've talked about this quality of the spring, of being also the result of the rot and the decay and the death of winter, and it's sort of is a reinsurgence from that energy, that earth energy after the winter, that comes back to us in the spring through the earth, right? The new things are starting to grow from the rot and the decay from the winter. So there is maybe in the transition a little bit of reinsurgence of the shadow aspects, a reappearance of maybe old problems or old habits that repeat in cycles, and we can't explain why we're feeling like this. But farther than that, now I'm recording this on the 19th of April, so it's almost the end of April, and I'm still struggling with this sensation of, shouldn't I feel like my energies are starting to gather up and rise up? And shouldn't I feel like there's a renewal of my energy and that I'm starting a new cycle? And I'm not. I'm not completely feeling like this. I'm still very cold and I'm still very stiff. And today I found an amazing reel on Instagram where this man was talking, this Englishman was talking about the environmental issue of our spring signs disappearing. He was actually addressing this issue that I have been sort of like internally and emotionally carrying all this time. And he was saying like how definitely our national trust is effectively saying that we have lost a huge percentage of blossoming trees. He was talking about that without the signs of nature, it is very difficult to spot the renewal and the change and the coming of spring. So this reel started by saying, it's springtime. Have you noticed? If you haven't, I don't blame you, because the signs of spring are starting to disappear from our environment. But actually today I wanted to bring two questions that this person mentions in the reel. What the man wrote in the caption of this video is, the spring deeply changes me, he says. The winter shows me a layer, and then the spring asks me to peel it off. Deepening my relationship with the cycles of nature helps me feel held as my inner world shifts. The natural processes that help facilitate our personal changes are deteriorating, along with signposts like blossoms that inform us of the changing of seasons. What happens when those natural spaces aren't there? Will I be able to shed my winter layer and emerge anew if my outer world wouldn't be reflective of that change? And I have my personal annotations, and I actually left a comment for him, but I'm not gonna read you this. This is an entry on my journal. But I do ask myself these questions, right? And this is literally the question that I have been asking myself for the past almost 2 months now. It is, will I be able to shed my winter layer if my environment still shows dark and rainy, and I see less species of plants, and I see less pollinators in the flowers? I don't see the bees, I don't see barely the butterflies. So if my environment doesn't help putting my attention into these shifts, I will definitely go through the shifts, and we all do go through the shifts, but nature is supposed to be there to inspire, and has always been there in ancient cultures. Nature has always been there as a sort of mirror, at least in our understanding, a mirror that allows us to connect our own internal processes to it. We see this process, as I was telling you, the seed that is buried in the winter growing through the decay in the fertilized earth as a symbol of something that could grow inside of us. But what happens when these internal processes are unsynced with what's happening outside into nature? And I just wanted to raise awareness about this today because I have personally been feeling it. We should be more aware of how nature and human are the same, as within, so without. And not just that, I've been reading a lot of books lately and posts and information about this lost view of the world where humans will see themselves as part of their environment and the environment as part of themselves. So I exist because there's air here that allows me to breathe, because there's water here that is potable, that I can drink. If I start contaminating the environment, the air that I breathe and the water that I drink, then that will affect me directly. And this is essentially talking in the physical realm because it's the most obvious, but there are also emotional and psychological effects to the damaging of nature. Today, we have a big problem in our whole world, and we all know it, but I don't think there's enough people talking about it. There are organizations who raise awareness, who raise money, etc., to save the environment, but I don't think it's a normal frequent conversation in circles of people, and mostly in circles of witchcraft and in practitioners of nature magic. How can we not be talking about the problem of environmentalism when we are witchcraft practitioners? For all the misinformation that is out there and all the denialism, I just want to say that we have to remember that we are one and only one with nature. What happens outside of there is there to be a mirror of psychological cycles and processes and shifts that we feel inside of ourselves. If we don't do like nature and go through seasons, then we're stuck. We really have to go through these 4 cycles and seasons to evolve. I think nowadays it's very important that we remember that we are part of nature and that we need to pay attention to these processes and the shifts that we go through internally, as well as the shifts that we can spot in nature. And if we can't spot them, or it's more and more difficult, then also raise awareness about this. Raise awareness that it is more difficult nowadays to see nature heal itself. And this can be a really big problem for our emotions, for our psyche. And I will go as far as saying that it is one of the reasons why we have so much emotional and psychological damage in our human societies today and in our cities. So I hope that we can together pay more attention to nature, learn how to respect it, learn how to take care of natural spaces. If you can get involved in your community, in your town, with any sort of environmental activity, even planting trees or taking care of green spaces. And if it is affordable for you and you can afford the time and everything, then do that. Let's participate as much as we can of taking care of the spaces that are already there and maybe helping create new natural spaces and regenerating land. I've been very inspired about this lately. And yeah, so this is where my journey has taken me this year, and I wanted to share it with you all. If you have comments or ideas about this, please just let them in the comments and we'll talk furthermore about this. So thank you very much for being here today, and I will see you next time. In the morning, forest shadows dance free, mystical whispers.
shadows have gone through the trees, reaching our